Evening, everyone. It's 5:57, and it's time for your closing comment. It's video number 644, and if you like the work, hit that subscribe button. Okay, so it was kind of an interesting day. Things all over the place. All of the recent trends reversed, and I'll get into that in a second. The Dow closed up 2737, which was under 10 basis points, but it had been down 207 and up about 170. In contrast to that, we had the NASDAQ closing down 341.41, which was a move of 2.46%. It opened down and stayed down all day. Only got worse towards the close. We also had the S&P, which was pretty much all over the place, closed down 30.21, which was just under 0.8%, and the Russell down 1562 or 0.7%. This is a string of bad days for the Russell. Surprisingly, Dow Jones Transport's up 107.21 or 0.8%, making a new all-time high, and even with a bit of a sell-off, still closed at a new all-time high. As far as stocks went, they hated the FAANG stocks, and they just completely abandoned them. I'm not going to go into all of them right here, but Tesla, 714.5, down 66.80. Boeing, which had news over the weekend, I'm sure everybody's heard about it, an engine exploded and rained down parts over a residential area in Denver, or pardon me, in Colorado. I'm not sure where it was. Those parts came off a Pratt & Whitney PW4000 engine, and it was on a Boeing 777. Nobody was hurt, not on the ground, not in the plane, and Boeing, which opened and moved down to 210.80, down 7, turned as soon as people saw that this wasn't a replay of the 737 MAX, and moved up to 220, which was a big piece of the early Dow loss, and then finished the day on the downside a little at 212.88, down 459. So not an overwhelmingly bad day. Also on the upside, we had Disney. No specific news on it, but it closed 192, up 835 or 4.56%. Most of the information during the day was talking about Bob Chapek and the streaming business, which is running well ahead of most of the other streamers, and primarily because Disney has such a deep vault of content. There was an activist who has taken a position in Kohl's, KSS. The stock closed 52.70, which was a recovery high for it, and it opened up 3 more this morning at about 55.70. Traded up as high as 58.38 and closed the day 55.97. That was up 327 or 6.2%. The activists wanted 9 board members, and it was a pretty interesting board. And this was only taken as good news as the stock, continued to move higher and hold that gain. The main point of all of this is the fact that in the last decade or so, coals hasn't really appreciated all that much. And this activist doesn't have a small position. They have a position of almost 10%. PANW, Palo Alto Networks, probably the premier cybersecurity company, reported earnings this afternoon, a beat both top and bottom line, and the stock had closed at 384.35, down 12 and change, and then after the news traded all the way down to 361. Was coming back a bit before in the 368 to 370 area, back and forth. And also an adjunct to the Boeing news was RTX, which is Raytheon Technologies. They are the ones who own Pratt & Whitney, and that Pratt & Whitney 4000 engine was their manufacturer. The stock closed 73, down $1.26 or 1.7%, which is really nothing overwhelming. It turns out that the plane and the engine are roughly 20 years old, and I guess there'll be some finger pointing as to maintenance and inspections and how that could all happen. But the bottom line was, as I said, nobody was hurt, and so not a lot of an issue. Again, it was FAANG versus everyone else. We had, we had across the board in all of the FAANG stocks, all red. And really, there were a whole bunch of consumer discretionaries that were down, real estate was down. So kind of an interesting day. Okay, in the futures, clearly Bitcoin, the biggest discussion today, opened near the high, made a new all-time high, 57,790. It was actually higher over the weekend in the cash Bitcoin, but these are the futures, which are a little easier for me to track. The range, as I said, was 57,790 on the high, and the low, 48,320. In my market letter over the weekend, I said that it had reached my price objective on a measured move and that I was expecting a pullback. I wasn't expecting a pullback from 58,000 to 48,000, but we closed in the middle, and that was down 1810, but really quite a range, 48 to 58,000. That's a pretty massive move. The gold finally came back to life and was the leader amongst the metals. It was up $31. I'll give you a look at that. Coming from this area of consolidation, I've been pointing out this little double bottom and the fact that I thought we could move higher, and today we did. We closed pretty close to the high. The high was 1812 and change, and we closed 1808.40, up 31. The silver was up, copper was up, but the copper, you have to remember, that's an industrial play here. The surprise, of course, was the fact that platinum was down 10. It's really been leading the metals of late. Palladium up 22, but that's kind of a smaller and thinner market. The dollar was down. The close was 89.99.9. I call that 90 cents down, $90 down 36 cents. The bonds were down about 3/4 of a point, and we took a position on the long side of the bonds. Number one, they're oversold, and number two, it looks to me as if we get a move to the downside in stocks, there will be a flight to safety play, and the bonds will undoubtedly be one of the major participants. And it's pretty extended to the downside. As a matter of fact, let me give you a little look here, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I've been negative on this market for such a long time. is a surprise when I look at it and I go, oh, well, okay. It closed pretty close to the low, 162 and 12/32, but I want to give you a much broader idea. So let's go to the weekly and expand it out to the 3-year level, and you can see we are now back to an area that should be support. This was the most recent break to the upside. So we broke out here around 164, and then we broke through the top here, and that's about 167 and a quarter. I think we could easily come back up under this. The red line is the 100-week and 100-day moving averages. So I'm looking for a bounce, I'm looking for a flight to safety, and I'm looking for a profit. All right, everyone, have a good evening, and I'll be back first thing in the morning. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Have a good one.